This is North Melbourne Primary School in Molesworth Street in North Melbourne. This is what it used to look like before, quite a bit of time before we started. It was part of the social housing program, and that's the site that we were given. Some genius thought putting 600 kids on a weird triangle was a good idea, but we're up for the challenge. Just by way of information and nothing to do with us, the rest of the site is on the bottom, social housing on the left-hand side, market housing, with a laneway that swings around the back of it. And we inherited a master plan which showed a future multi-purpose multi-storey primary school right there, which ultimately as a footprint didn't make a lot of sense. As to what fits on the site, a certain amount of program, and we quickly became aware it's our first VSBA project about how much stuff is in the box, and so it was about 150% of the site, and a designated minimum 7 square metres per child. So testing out the volume very quickly just by way of maths shows what you could fit on that triangular site, and they gave us an instant indication of that we're up for a vertical school of at least 4 storeys. And so that led us to endless number of permutations about how to fit this thing on the site. And then in the last few weeks of schematic design, a 66-person kindergarten was added to the mix just to make things a little bit more interesting. Schematic design ended like that with, and our move was, unlike a lot of the other vertical schools, was to try and push as much of the play space together. To us and to teachers, it doesn't make sense to have distributed play through the school, hard to supervise, hard to manage, and not much fun to actually play in. Thinking about the school led us to thinking about thinking and how that works, and this became a sort of a driver for it, and what the idea of an idea might be and how that might play out in a primary school environment, and also the idea of thinking and daydreaming, how that might play out. So some little studies that were in the first few weeks about that character, which really generated a starting point for the school. Some of these sort of conceptions, how that might, those sort of collection of ideas might turn into a sort of an organism for the school in and of itself, culminating in a building that looked a bit like that, 6 stories, exactly like that, on Molesworth Street, which is a rather interesting intervention into a sort of a 2-story sort of late 19th century streetscape. And then from above you can see a building that is performing double and triple duty for everything it does. It's incredibly dense in terms of the occupation. The next thread that we brought into the project was working with this beautiful lady, Carolyn Briggs, who actually went to North Melbourne Primary School in Errol Street and had a deep association with the place and with NAM generally, and also the co-author of a few books about the origins of place, some children's books, and she wrote them with primary school kids, which is kind of a lovely thread, and we're quite inspired by that work. And through some quite interesting conversation early in the design process, the idea of trying to identify character and placemaking through this vertical building. We just didn't want these to feel like mini office workers. These kids of 6, 7 and 8 in a building, they weren't going to park themselves in an office level. So coming up with precincts of Willarm, Wurundjeri, a way of sort of both sharing language but also knowing where I am and where I belong in the building. And then that's how that ultimately laid out into a very complex ecosystem of a building through there. So to Wurundjeri and the Terendia, the emu's eggs, the sort of the origin of things, informing the play space, working together with bush landscape architects to come up with this incredible landscape, which does also many things, including moving up vertically 5 metres in the building to a reasonably steep site too, so the landscape not only had to perform but also perform vertically. And a terrific photograph from above just showing how that mini oval works. And you can see the range of experiences that happen in this dense landscape. Six entrances to the school, building on the tradition of Errol Street Campus, which is only 200 metres down the road, which is also incredibly permeable campus too, so the idea that it is knitted into its landscape. So to the ground level, where Wurundjeri, which is performance and presentation, and of course literature and reading at the heart of the place too. So that point of arrival, the main point of springing, all children move vertically through the school by stairs and not by lift. So making sure that transition, which was ultimately for kinder through to grade 2 in the end, so quite young children moving through vertical landscape. So how that works, the sense of arrival, the sense of gathering and performance, a place to sort of get together and celebrate. And then the library at the kind of heart of the place. To the lower grounds, an incredible asset of the what's called the community hub, the gymnasium, which the roof of which becomes a play space dedicated for the younger kids and for outside school hours care. So that's the sort of the start of Willam or home. Which is a specialist environment with a kind of campfire at the heart of it. We'll get to that, what that means. It's the first of the learning environments, but also a STEM environment. 2 minutes, the campfire. Some of those dedicated play spaces. That rooftop landscape with kitchen garden and sort of PE zone. Up to the typical education or sort of learning environment levels, there are 3 of these. And moving through a stair, all the stairs stack vertically, so circulation and learning don't mix. We always keep circulation and learning of any type, whether it's horizontal or vertical, separate. Reflective spaces, sensory spaces, and then general learning spaces. Each of the classrooms, although open plan, because that's how North Melbourne Primary has always learned, have 3 focus sites, so enclosed on 3 sites, so they're not learning in a field, they're learning in a place of focus. So we go from waterways to land, and just quickly snapping through some of those learning environments, both formal and informal, and then to the Wuru level to sky. And you can see how the learning environments are clustered in groups of 3. Toileting and amenities are a key issue in there. They're gender neutral, they're open, the only private spaces are the cubicles in there, well supervised. And then up to the Bunjil's Nest, which is the 66 place kindergarten operated by the Northwest Cluster, which is a light-filled and beautiful sort of start to education. And you can see the outdoor learning there is absolutely critical too. Little cubby house right at the top of the Eagle's Nest too, which is a lot of fun. A terrific sand pit. And there's my